Hey you guys, it's M4J here, and welcome back to North Reef City here on City Skylines, where my fight against traffic continues. Today, my solution is to build a new little slip road here for the motorway. There was meant to be a full junction, you know, on and off on both directions, but I couldn't get one in there next to those dormitories, so I just decided to make it a bit of a lopsided junction instead, which, to be honest, is fairly realistic. Near where I grew up in Hatfield, the junctions with the A1, there's a very, very unusual, I think it's like junctions 2 and 3, if you want to look it up online, of the A1M. Very strange it felt perfectly normal to me as a kid, but watching it back and looking at it back, and you know, the first time my girlfriend came up to visit me in Hertfordshire, you kind of get an outside perspective on it, and you realise just how weird it actually is. Completely irrelevant to the topic of this video, by the way, but there we go. This is just a little attempt at getting rid of some more of the traffic problems. It adds another junction. I don't expect this one to be heavily used. I think it's got a fair amount of usage, but it's not like excessive. So hopefully this helps contribute to resolving the issue that we've been having as well with traffic. And I say we, I of course mean me, because you guys don't have traffic problems. You guys know what you're doing. The second part of this video, which does take off in just a second, we have this central bus lane avenue that runs through the city centre, and it's an absolute nightmare for traffic. It is probably the worst part of the entire city, so I'm going to fix it. And one of the ways I'm going to fix it, I've talked about public transport, I mentioned it last episode, and I'm going back to it again this episode. The way I'm going to fix it is by completely rebuilding the central avenue. We're actually going to take a leaf out of the other side of the river's book, and we're going to build a 4-lane road in either direction with bus lanes, dedicated bus lanes. In fact, I think I start it now. There we go. And we're going to have a light rail system run through the middle. And that's how I'm going to fix the problem. And it's going to be a grade separated light rail system. There are going to be flat crossings with streets as we go along, but overall it's going to be a segregated network still. Now, some of you City Skylines purists out there might be about to scream at the screen when you see how I'm going to build this avenue. I can only apologise. Basically, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to use mods to help me out. I was under the impression that there was a part of the node controller where you could shift roads, like perpendicular to... I'm trying to think of the way of describing it. That's the other problem, is like I was trying to find a solution on Google and trying to find the terms to actually search for to get the answer I needed. It was borderline impossible. You can see here, though, I've built these roads relatively close. The solution I end up with is to move things slightly away. But it's this bit here where I connect this road up to this main starred junction. And then I think I had some problems with some of the roads here as well, which is a massive pain in the neck. I fix it, don't you worry. I do get it fixed. But yeah, I tried to use node controller to sort of shift the roads sideways along the node, and it turns out I guess you can't do that. Is that something that you can't do? And I've only just found out about it. I could have sworn you used to be able to do it with node controller, and they've since changed it. Either way, it's relatively frustrating. So if there is a fix for that, by all means let me know. I'll be happy to know. If not, it is what it is. But this is the general shape that we're going for. You see, I've got an added turn lane for right-hand turns. So it's 2 normal lanes and a bus lane for the most part. But every time we get to an intersection, like a major intersection, there's a right-hand turn lane, which has, for the most part, fixed the problem. We do still have a little issue with traffic looping round on itself to get to certain parts of the city, which I was kind of expecting, but not in the way that it's actually happened, which is a bit weird. But I like this. I think it works really, really well. I do change the light rail tracks as well, so they're not this fenced off version. It's like a street with like grassy, overgrown track beds, which I think from a maintenance perspective is a nightmare. Sorry, but for an aesthetic point of view, it actually looks pretty damn good. I think so. I'm happy about that. I think it looks pretty damn good. I've already said that, but I'll say it again. I think it looks pretty damn good. Couple of light rail stops along this street. There's one immediately after the exit of the tunnel, which you saw me build a little while ago, and there's one that connects up with the railway station. The railway station as well, by the way, gets rebuilt. It might get changed again, but for now I've gone with a small-scale recreation of Berlin Hauptbahnhof as the station building. Which, I mean, it looks great for intercity traffic, but it doesn't look very good for a 5-car class 710, I think it is, the new London Overground trains. It doesn't look great with them because the station's way too big for the train. But it is what it is. I might change it. I might build a dedicated commuter rail station next to it. We'll see. But the main thing is, traffic, I've left this running for a little while after building it, and traffic does still build up in certain places, but I've made a few small tweaks here and there. I think one of the key things was not having every intersection on this main road connect to both directions of travel. That seems to be the main fix, really, was just every road was an intersection on this avenue, and that's not what you're supposed to do. So going through and actually changing that made a massive, massive difference. And that's what seems to have fixed the traffic for the most part. But yeah, it's something I'm learning as I'm going along. And you know, I'm sure I said in episode 1, this isn't going to be perfect. Things will break. Things will need to be fixed. Things will need to be changed. But that's part of the process for me, and that's what I enjoy doing. So as long as you guys aren't tearing your hair out watching it, I'd say we're in for a good video still and a good series. But again, I'm sure there'll be people out there who are like, what the hell's this idiot doing? But yeah, whatever. What else am I going to talk about then? So public transport. I've mentioned it a couple of times, and I've mentioned it last week. I mentioned it this week. I've got some ideas now for how to connect things up. And you'll see throughout this recording here, I changed my mind a couple of times on how the railway system's going to work. But ultimately, we're focusing on sort of 3 steps of travel. There's the feeder step, which is buses, trolley buses if we ever add them, and walking. They're the 3 feeders. We have got park and rides as well for those who drive, but for the most part it's walking, bus, trolley bus, and even then trolley bus is technically a bus, so it's walking or bus. Then we've got sort of the mid tier, which is light rail or tram lines. I'm not sure about monorail. I don't think I'll build a monorail system in this city. If I do, it'll be like a tourist thing. So maybe Reef Square will get one, or maybe I don't know. I'm sort of spitballing again here. Oh, you also saw there we had an extra little turn lane for buses coming out of the bus station. That's actually tying in with what I'm talking about, believe it or not. So I'll carry on with what I was saying. We've also got the ferries that go along with the trams as well. They're kind of mid-tier. It's for travelling between districts of the city, effectively. So buses is for more local stuff, and then you've got the trams and the ferries for more sort of long distance, but still within the confines of the city. Then we've got metro, which we don't actually have yet in this city. We've got a couple of stations that have been built, but for the most part, metro is sort of for crossing the river, long distance journeys, but it's mainly, it sits in the same bracket for me as light rail, but a higher capacity. So we'll be able to fit more people per vehicle, which means we'll be able to move more people around. And that's kind of the tier. It's kind of, imagine it's a house. This is the mezzanine level. You've got underground and you've got overground, which is the overground system we already have. It's the railway that goes between Upper Whipton and the Central Railway Station here, which I think right now is called North Reef Central, but I can imagine that name will be changed as things progress. And then finally, we've got things like the airport, which hasn't been built yet. We've also got, cruise ship terminals that also hasn't been built yet, but we have got Upper Whipton Station, which is exterior rail, outside rail connection, which is for long distance travel, people entering and exiting the city. We've also got, Reef Square bus station. We've got the one in, I can't remember what it's called. I think it's Metro or something Plaza. The one by the big underground station plaza that we've got. That's also for external travel. It's an intercity bus hub that also happens to have local buses calling there too. I want to revisit the entirety of the bus network at some point in the next couple of episodes, because this episode, I can't remember if I do it on camera or off camera, but I do map out some extra bus services that run from the ferry terminal down at the bottom tip of the island here, or the peninsula, right the way up to the railway station. And there's a couple of other bus lines that I plan out, plus the light rail. And it kind of made me realise that there's a lot of work that needs doing to actually make this functional. It's all well and good. It works. But we've got a couple of bus lines that intersect with one another. And one of the other things I wanted to work on was watching traffic. Also, these nodes are so messed up, by the way. I do fix this as well in a minute. You'll see. I moved the roads further out from the tram track, and it fixes the problem. No worries. So the buses in downtown, I want buses to be restricted to certain roads, not necessarily bus lanes, but just not on every single street. So what I wanted to do was a bit like I did in Upper Whipton, was restrict buses from travelling down side streets, or if I do have a side street with bus lanes on it, then restrict them to that, because there's a lot of traffic around the southern tip of this peninsula, and it's stopping buses from running properly. Now, the BRT is a way of solving that problem, and this avenue here is technically part of the BRT network, where buses can travel up and down at a relative high speed. They've got their own dedicated traffic signals. They've got their own sequence of the traffic signals. They have priority, really, when thinking about it. But there are still, getting to and from these bus lanes is still a bit of a faff. So I do want to revisit the bus network and see how we can reroute things a little bit more efficiently. I wouldn't mind some help on that, actually. If you guys in the comments are better at that than I am, which is pretty much going to be all of you, do get in touch. I wouldn't mind a hand with sorting out buses. Buses are the ones I struggle with the most. And it's kind of, I've said this in OpenTTD as well, where trains are restricted to track, ships are restricted to water, air is just, they can go anywhere. And you kind of have that problem with the road as well. And, City Skylines, to use the correct name, is the same. You have, buses can basically use any road that they're allowed on. And you might want to force them down certain routes, but unless you use bus stops to do that, you can't really do it unless you use Traffic Manager to turn off buses on certain roads, which is what I did for the most part. But I need to redo the bus lines for that to work, because I don't want a bus to suddenly be unable to reach one of its stops because that stop exists on a road that buses aren't allowed on. Now, I think one of the solutions I have for that is to have roads coloured a certain colour depending on whether or not buses are allowed down it. And then when I'm mapping out bus routes, I can just follow the roads that are the colour that symbolises that a bus can run on those. That's one solution. I really do want to get the park and rides up and running as well. The Diamond interchange from, episode 2, episode 3, whatever that is, that's still clogged up right now. Not because it's inefficient, but purely because where the bus stop is, the bus rapid transit stop is, cars keep stopping in the middle of the road because they're trying to find parking so they can catch the bus. So I need to build a little bit of parking down there. I think having little park and rides all around the city is not a bad idea. And I think for that one, I'll build a car park. I think we got a spare plot of land opposite the other side of the main road from the bus stop. I think I'll build some parking there with a way to get in from one of the roundabouts that we've built over there. And then people can park their cars there and walk to the bus stop, and then public transport takes over. I do want to map out some underground routes as well. I've already got one in mind from, or at least via the city centre. So there's the big plaza, underground plaza that we've got. One of those lines will go to Arena Island and then into Reef Square that way. The other one will come in from the city centre and kind of use Manhattan's map. New York subway map around Manhattan as a guide for how to do it, but I don't want to copy North American systems. I kind of want to focus on being inspired by Britain still. But there's nothing wrong with looking further afield for inspiration. I think that's not a bad idea, to be honest. If it works, use it, basically. And yeah, traffic signals. That's kind of the last thing I was going to talk about here before I let the music take over. We're almost halfway through as well, so that's perfect. So we've got these these intersections where there's technically 3 intersections in one. There's the road going north, there's the road going south, and then there's the light rail in the middle. So the way I've signalled all of this is to treat it as one big intersection. So right turn only has its own dedicated lane and own dedicated traffic light filter. Left turn only does as well, but effectively it's straight on or left. You can do it at the same time, and then turning right, you need to wait for your own sequence in the traffic lights. And then bus and tram have their own dedicated sequence as well. And I've used something that I saw on Yumble's channel recently. Yumble's someone I only discovered recently, and some of the advice he has is very, very useful, very, very handy. Some of it not so much, and I don't want to criticize anyone because, again, he's better at it than I am. But some of his tips and tricks, like, I think it comes from a very North American viewpoint, like don't use roundabouts and things like that. And, you know, the game doesn't simulate roundabouts very well, but for me, you know, a European and a Brit, roundabouts are our life source when it comes to traffic management. So I do hop on the roundabout hype wagon, perhaps a little too much. And I need to build some more of them, actually. I was planning the Star Junction and this part of the city. I was actually planning on replacing with a roundabout before I came up with this avenue idea. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, traffic signals. So one of the things Yumble mentioned was having a dedicated traffic light sequence just for buses or trams, or in this case, both, where you set it for a minimum of 1 second, a maximum of 5, and you skip over it if no one's moving, basically. And it works. You know, I've ridden on board a bus and a tram along this section, and sometimes they do have to wait at the lights for their turn, but more often than not, they're pulling up to the lights turn green, they go straight across, the lights immediately turn red, and the traffic starts moving again. It's brilliant. It's actually very, very clever. You know, it's a combination of geniuses who know how to use the mod, but also the geniuses who know how to make the mods that we then exploit for, you know, our own little traffic solutions. One more thing I'll point out. So you'll see the traffic here is getting a little out of control still. This is that looping thing that I was actually talking about, where traffic is heading north to then head east to then loop back down south, and then they head east again. One of my solutions to that was to lower the speed limit on some of the side streets. I think it's down to 10, I need to 10, but I think it's 20 or 15 miles an hour. And then I did a few other things to try and stop the majority of traffic from using these side streets and actually try to get them to use the main roads. Heavy traffic ban would probably help with that as well. I think I already have that switched on though, so I'm not sure if that is functioning as intended. But one-way systems is another solution as well. And again, this Star Junction, I've already started converting things over to the one-way system. And again, for the most part, seems to be okay, seems to work pretty well. So if that does work, then I'll continue to create one-way systems. Again, though, I don't want to blend too much into New York. We do have one-way systems in London, not a huge amount. It tends to be some of the side streets, they don't have connections at both ends now in London. They have one end that's cut off and it's pedestrian access only, which again is a pretty genius way of solving the problem. So I might look into that rather than one-way systems for everything. Some will be one-way systems, some will be pedestrian access only. We shall see. But for the most part, I think this does fix the problem. I did have to reset traffic. I removed all traffic basically as a hard reset. It's kind of a cheap button, I suppose. But the problem I had was the traffic was never going to clear because it was so clogged. Even if this system worked, which it does, the backlog was still so great, it was never going to filter out. And you can see I'm looking, you know, I've even got like priority signals and things like that to try and sort out the traffic. And it's just so bad. Oh yeah, there's me cutting out some of these side streets as well. So you have to go one way to turn around and come back the other. Again, I thought that might have been an issue, but for the most part, it seems to be fine. Might even have some one-way streets crossing the light rail as well. So in Welwyn Garden City, which is near where I grew up, it's actually the town I was born in, for those of you who are interested. There's a place called Parkway, which is a very nice, very beautiful street. And they have this. So they have this big green space in the middle of the main road. And then they have these little one-way streets that cross over it to control traffic flow, which basically makes an elongated roundabout. But, you know, at the same time, it's a very nice town, Welwyn Garden City. Very, very nice town. Beginning of the World's End was filmed there. In fact, some of the middle of the World's End was filmed there as well. It's really weird when you see a pub that you've spent a lot of time drinking in on the big screen. You're like, oh yeah, they filmed there. Yeah. Anyway, I digress once more. Next week, I do want to start looking more at expanding to the north of the railway station here. And I also want to look at expanding on the other side of the river as well. And I kind of want to start building big neighbourhoods again. And then we can start looking at linking all those up with public transport. And then we might have a city that's big enough to justify building a subway system. It just felt like right now we didn't have enough to build an underground system. Whereas in the future we might do. And parking is still very much a problem. As you can see, people are they just stop in the middle of the street. And that one there, I really don't understand. Because the parking for the zoo is literally on the left-hand side of the screen there. So I don't know what they're doing. They could park at the zoo and walk back, or there's a bus that stops right outside the zoo car park, so they could get the bus from there if they wanted to. I'm still working out the latest updates for Traffic Manager, but again, if anyone's got any advice in the comments, I'd be very, very grateful for that. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of me talking in this episode. The rest of this episode is pretty much just traffic lights and one-way systems and fixing traffic and things like that. So if that's not your thing, fair enough. Thanks for watching up to this point. If it is your thing, get the notebook out. You're about to see a lot of it. You might as well get the camera ready as well while you're there. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. And of course, if you're enjoying the series so far. I've got hiccups as well. You have to excuse me. Drop some comments down below. Like I said, if you've got any advice for how to fix these traffic problems or how to work with Traffic Manager or anything to do with Node Controller that I've missed out, feel free to drop them down below. It'll be very, very helpful. Besides that, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. If you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you guys for your continued support. Enjoy the rest of the video, enjoy the music, enjoy the time lapse, and until next time, I will see you soon.